Well, today I've got four of my good friends, Duane Goff, Clarke Taylor, and of course George McCoin. This is at the end of 2023, and we may talk about the future, inventions, and whatever else. It's going to be a great show. Hello? No, I'm sorry, you've got the wrong number. Thank you. Do y'all remember these phones?
Oh, yeah.
You remember one? You remember them, Clarke?
Yeah, that was my grandmother, my mom's mom. I can still remember using one of those. So one time I was trying to figure out how to, like you get the letters, you'd call somebody, and I was trying to put in something. I couldn't figure out how to get the numbers match up because it was just...
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
Why do they have the numbers on their, the letters on there, George?
At one time when you had party lines, your party line might be Greenwood. When we grew up on North Lee Highway, our party line exchange was Greenwood, and then we had I think a 4-digit phone number. And I don't know why they did that. Maybe they thought people could remember letters better. Now with your passwords on the internet, instead of having they're suggesting you use a word now instead of a number sometimes. Your password. So I guess that was your password back then, the equivalent.
The equivalent to that.
So other than that, I really don't know. That's just my guess, and I just made it up right here on the spot.
Well, that reminds me of, what was it? Hee-haw, that guy'd always say BR549. I guess that
That's
was
right.
the letters.
That's what you had out in the country. You had up near Charleston, it was Greenwood, GR, something. I was too young to get to use the phone very much then, Dee. Only got on the phone when they handed it to me and said, here, talk to somebody.
Well, see, the significance about that is people wouldn't dial the wrong number now. Your caller ID would be who you're calling and their name and everything else. So we've really advanced, and now we're all sitting here with smartphones. How many years later? I mean, I remember these well.
Well, that was a form of smartphone back then. You could pick it up and hear your neighbor talking. If they didn't realize you were on the phone listening to them, you could listen on their conversation and get smarter. So it was part of a smartphone also.
Yeah. I've seen some videos of the younger generation. They just hand them one and say, dial somebody. And they can't do it for a minute. Some eventually figure it out, but it's a little awkward compared to...
I guess it is, and that was new technology to the crank. When you held it up to your ear and somebody listening in the dispatch and connecting the lines, and that was what would that have been? Not in the late 50s. This was standard, or would you say? I guess that would have been standard in 70, right? 1970.
Yes, they went to push button. I think, before 1970. Some of the phones, you could get push button.
So from 70, that's what, 50 years? 50 years ago, we went from dialing a phone to the smartphones that can check your blood pressure or your pulse or whatever, measure whether something's level. I mean, what is these things won't do? That is really advanced technology, isn't it?
Well, it is for now, until they come out with something next generation.
Do you think, George, that inventions are just an improvement on past inventions? Does that make sense?
Well, most of them are, Dee. If you want to predict tomorrow, I would say it would be safe to say that tomorrow will be a lot like today, but different. And that is that you do build upon what you have today. So in that respect, it's still the same. It's the same function of allowing two people to communicate, but the mechanism that they used for that communication's changed.
So was the invention talking across wires, or was this just an improvement of the invention? Does that make sense?
Respectfully, I would say no.
You think the phone was the...
No, I think you have all the different components in it. And so there were many conventions. What was your first phone? Electricity went through the wires. It was more direct. People could understand it. Now, with the microprocessors and things you have to have a microscope to look at. Even if you look at them, you don't know what you're looking at. If you take apart that phone and take apart your Apple Watch and see which one's easier to figure out what's in there.
This is more mechanical, whereas this one's more... Well, I guess they're both mechanical in a sense, right?
Well, I think
I think that's a good example.
Yeah, you end up coming up with nanotechnology, which allowed for all these big processors. You know, computer used to be a home computer wouldn't fit in this room, and now you've got way more powerful on your cell phone, but nanotechnology allowed for it to make it so small. And these robots and computers are actually making the components that a human wouldn't be able to assemble.
So are they, if you could get down on a microscopic level, are they still moving parts? That's what I've always wondered. I guess we had to say, what is nanotechnology?
Solid state drives are a big thing now, and to my knowledge, there's no moving parts in there at this point. But
Something's got to be making it happen. That's way over my head. But it doesn't matter if an invention is way over our head. I heard this guy say the other day on the internet that we invent stuff, and then the invention invents us. In other words, now that we've got this new invention, now we are different. We have been invented in a new way.
Transformative communication amongst, I think I've heard always, I guess and this is off, but with the technology was it radio and TV? I don't remember my time when it's always been TV, but how we communicate, or how things are, hearing something over the radio and seeing somebody talk about it on TV, you hear two different things.
Well, that's the truth.
When you first came out with, same now with texting and the phone, when you text, is that the form of media, how is it? But going back to, not to get off the subject, but I've always thought it was interesting when radio or when TV started to come out. Of course, people are still used to radio, but hearing something, I think it was a presidential debate, and how the people that listened to it on the radio from the TV, it was completely opposite of who they said won the debate. But they said this. They heard the same thing.
That was Nixon
like,
and
if you
Kennedy.
say something on the phone, you text it to me. Duane, you call me and tell me that. You text it to me, George, whatever it may be. I'm going to hear it different, or I'm going to see, But it evolves us into, I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So in other words, if somebody can call me and say something, and they text it, and I can actually read more into their text and almost get offended. Like, what do they mean by that? Because I didn't hear their tones or their,
Body language.
Body language.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So that's a weird dynamic of that, isn't it?
They said John F. Kennedy versus Nixon, that Nixon had a more powerful voice and communicated by radio well, but John F. Kennedy, the way he looked, carried the day with the new technology of television.
We could have had a whole nother, the history could have been completely different had they have had TV then versus radio now or whatever. And that may be the same with the internet. And we got to assume it's a change. As far as if you read something on the internet, and like a lot of these Google sites, you can really read into what they're saying, and it'll be saying something a little bit different, but they really do a lot of play on words. And I guess that's maybe a negative about this, about the new technology. You're not seeing everybody on speaking like they would have in the past.
Well, I think the negative of Google and some of those is they try to anticipate and learn what you like, and they keep giving you the same thing, so it narrows down your view when you do some of the searches. And hopefully with AI, that you can get back to where you aren't restricted by the way someone writes an algorithm that when you do your inquiries.
Yeah, because they will tailor what they send to you. See, I won't get any ads on violins because I don't look at violins. I know nothing about playing violins, and they're not going to sell me a violin. So there's a lot of technology. Maybe I'm using that word wrong, but in being able to understand what certain people will buy and what they want. So maybe all of these inventions are basically boiled down to how we can sell something. Because if there wasn't any necessity, then why would anybody invent anything?
That's a big driver.
Yes.
And I think AI is going to actually make what George is talking about worse, because it'll be able to learn you more and probably direct you even further in a single path versus seeing all the other options that are maybe out there. I literally looked online yesterday at some treadmills, and then within hours I'm getting ads on Facebook and Instagram, and it's just all these different treadmill companies. So they know they have the information. They're selling you as soon as
Are
they
they selling that information to the people to
Sure.
sell that thing
Oh,
to
yeah.
you?
And then they call your phone.
Well, every time you download an app, every
Yeah.
time you use a service, you know all those little things that nobody reads, and you just click, accept. You're selling your information.
Wonder what that information's worth, 0.0002%, or I don't know how they calculate that. There's got to be big business in it.
That's to do that. Well, talking about AI, that with our phones, that's how we can. The phones, people being technically people, everybody knows where we are or somebody is.
Yeah, that's
How
right.
much do you think that's accurate? Like on the new with like in real estate, they're doing like the site selection stuff. And we were talking about that not long ago with the guys. And I said, how accurate do you feel like it is? A lot of people feel like it's not. But I don't know if that's people in whatever industry it may be that feel like it's taken away from, who knows? Is it just a marketing pitch to say this is the new thing? Now we can tell where somebody's doing, what people are into, as far as the consumer.
And I also wonder too if they make correlations between certain people wear this and they would tend to also do that, or does that make sense? I mean, there's
Sure.
got to be a.
The more they learn about us, the more predictors
If
they
you drive a
have.
red
of what we
car
want.
and you
That's
wear
right.
a ball cap, you're more likely to do X, Y, Z. Or
Do
something.
y'all,
right.
do y'all
Yeah.
remember, I think it was about 2018, y'all remember Pokemon Go? It was
Yeah.
an app, and that was probably one of the first apps. It was a real augmented reality, where it takes
Yeah.
digital and it puts it into your real world. So everyone that had that app was telling that company exactly where they were located. They're going around and finding a gym that's right here and taking a picture of it, and it's putting digital into your phone, so it looks like it's there. But you're playing this game, but you're telling this software everything about you, where you drive, where you go, and they're making money off selling your information. But that I want to say that app made like $3 billion.
Golly.
Yeah.
And probably set the stage for other people.
Sure.
They might have sold that technology rather than just the name.
When ChatGPT first came out, it was free. I got onto it, and I wanted to see what it really could do. And I asked it about a very specific regulation, a subpart of a regulation under Regulation Z, which is not something most people would even know what that is. And it went right to it. And there are thousands of regulations the government puts out. It gave me the specific section, a quote, and then asked for cases and decisions interpreting it, and it pulled up some. And it did it almost instantly. If I go to there now and I try to ask questions like that, it will tell me that database is not accessible. And the reason is they're now selling that information. You have to pay for it. But when it was free, it was amazing what it could find and the speed with which it would do it. And that was not, that type of search, it wasn't being marketed. They weren't collecting data to market to others. They were just doing a search for me. And I think that's one of the difference. And that's why I was thinking that in the next year or so, we're going to see more monetization of AI. They're getting the software where it will now be something that you will pay for, and because it really worked.
You know, I wonder if AI is just a fast search engine. It just pulls just a fast search engine with voice. Or is it something that, I mean, can AI...
It contains a predictive element.
But can it write art? Can AI...
Write art?
Can AI paint a picture?
Sure. Yes.
Can create pictures for sure. I mean,
No
and the
question.
thing is, you talk about progression of discovery and technology, and this is a big issue right now that the actors are, protesting against AI and potentially being putting up digital actors in movies and those
the Mel
sorts of
Gibson
things.
sold his
Oh, yeah.
rights or whatever.
And they can do all that, but back in the day, you probably had an issue where an artist was really upset about when cameras came out and you had photography. So then that kind of took into the next thing.
All right,
And
now
then-
back up. Say that again.
Well, you had artists, right? And they have to draw it. Well, then technology, you came up with a camera. You could take a picture. Well, that kind of hurts that sector, right? So these guys aren't happy, but then you got photography. Well, then photography came along, and then all of a sudden you have digital photography, which is the next thing. Now you've got, AI generated. So it's all, just kind of a continuing advancement of something similar, but potentially better, but more computerized. I'm a big fan of advancement. I do think jobs will be eliminated due to AI, but I think there will be as many jobs created because of AI.
Things change, shift.
Sure.
I mean, I think you're kind of saying, well, similar to that, like the metaverse real estate is going to go. I mean, now you can buy, sell, lease
Land in the
digital
middle
real
and
estate. I
the
mean,
middle-
it's replacing. I mean, that's the. So it went from artists went away to literally, I guess people in the real estate world may be protesting against it progress, but you can in the virtual reality of staging of an office, where you can buy, sell, lease it, all in the metaverse.
And you wonder, well, who will control the land in the metaverse? I guess it would be, you create your metaverse, he creates his, but I own 60 acres in your metaverse, but I don't own any in his.
That you can
Now
bargain and wait and buy some from him.
maybe your two metaverses go to war.
Or that.
I mean, and here we go, right?
Yeah.
Or, I think when, I've got two of my children are both under 2.5 and 1.5. I think we've talked about this before, George, maybe all of us. There's a chance they may have more friends that are robots by their teenage years.
Well, that was sort of where I was getting with this AI and these, I've seen some videos of people giving speeches, and it was not a real person, and I couldn't tell the difference. So, if that's true, if they married AI, Chat GPT, with holograms, and if holograms could become 3D, then we could have another person, that fourth person I was talking about when I said I've got four of my friends here. Maybe that person could come and sit down if it was you know, and we laugh about that, but the reality is, when the person was dialing this phone and using letters instead of numbers, he would have never, ever conceived of these cell phones literally 50 years later.
No, I mean, I remember y'all probably remember being in school and your teacher telling you, you got to learn your times tables because you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go.
They wouldn't let you have a calculator in school. Remember that?
And now, like you mentioned, your cell phone not only is a calculator, it's a measuring device. It can tell you the pitch on a roof. It can show you the Google Earth and everything. It's amazing.
I can take a picture of him and send it to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
It is.
And that's in 50
And
years.
almost instantly across the other side of the world.
You know, when somebody says, "Oh, that's impossible," you just can't say that anymore if you're living in our time. I mean, we've got two people now that's trying to go to Mars and they are two of the smartest. You know, Elon Musk and that Jeff Bezos. They're two of the smartest people in the world. They're doing something crazy bizarre. So,
What's kept people from going to Mars? Is it the heat? How hot it is? I think I got a C or a D on my solar system in 4th grade, so
I think those
away.
people that come up
I think
with
the teacher was out.
I think there's more than one reason. And first would just be the distance.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that go there would like to come back.
well, if you
Maybe a one-way trip.
Yes, it's very likely a one-way trip.
How far is it? I mean, it's hard to even comprehend, I guess, but
I would Google that.
how much farther than the moon is it? I mean, 10 times further, or I don't even...
I don't know.
I can't figure out why they...
I think it takes.
So
I think
intrigued to
Jeff
do that.
Bezos says it's 9 days to get. He's calculated. If I may be messing this up, I think he said 9 days travel to Mars.
Oh, I would think it's much farther than that.
I think those people that invent stuff. Do you think they sit down and think of how to do it first, or do you think they think of the problem and then say, okay, here's the problem. Here's how it needs to happen, and then they work backwards to how to get it done. Because my mind would start right here and say, well, I first need a pen, and they're not thinking about that. They're thinking of, oh, well, we need to go to Mars, and we're going to get to Mars, and here's how we're going. Oh, how do we get there, and then how do we make the thing, and where's the manufacturing plant to make it, and where's the design, and where's our permits? I'd be starting at where's my pen to get my permit. So I think these people that think far out there are thinking on a different scale than
They
us.
almost reverse engineer.
Yes.
They think of the problems, the solution first, and then figure out how to get there, I think.
Work your way back, yeah.
But my question is, Bezos and Musk, have they given up on the sustainability of the Earth, which is why they're trying to go to Mars to have a separate habitat, or are they just want a second place to live?
From what I've watched, I believe so. I believe they think it's sustainability in the Earth will be. That's what I get. I gather that from Bezos, and I may be wrong, but that's my interpretation.
I just don't get how they can think they can create an environment on a whole nother planet that's going to be sustainable when they can't save the environment that we already have. That's just about, if you look up the chances that the Earth was able to have all the things that were created by God to allow us to breathe, to allow us to have gravity, it's like 100 trillion to the 1/billionth power, some crazy stuff, to be able to sustain life. And there's no other planet that we know of in our solar system that would be capable. So.
And they all point to, well, we think there was water there at one time, like that's the only thing that they need, and there's got to be more than just having to have water, right?
Sure. I mean, I'd give them a place out in the desert or give them somewhere else on the earth we have and figure out if they can just
Stay in Arizona for 2 weeks
See
without
if
a
they can
convenience
just keep
store.
something stable there. But who knows?
But now, if we go that route, if we were to go far into this AI and Chat GTP and this metaverse, how do we know we're not in it?
How do I know if you're real, D?
I mean, really?
Well, Dee, as I asked you before, how do we know there's not an alien among us?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be a time where, was it in Back to the Future? The movie where like they're trying to prove that they're real, so they show the newspaper from that day. There's going to be a time real soon, and it may be now, where I'm almost to the point you could have someone on TV and me not believe that it's really that person. I mean, a few years from now, you could have a president or someone in office that's not, maybe they're elected, but the person you're seeing on TV that is representing our country is not really them doing it. It may be a picture of them, but it's
Isn't
not
that kind
them
of the river now, or
talking.
that kind of the,
That is not a crazy thought.
No,
it's not a
it can
crazy
happen.
thought.
You can already find where people have used the technology to commit fraud by impersonating on the internet, on the screens, who they are as an executive to authorize release of money from companies. So they have gone in and created a meme with the voice of the executive directing, approve this invoice and pay it. And
Yeah.
So
And I think especially, like
it's a real risk.
banks and places that do release funds and those sorts of things, they're going to have to be extremely careful and cautious moving forward as far as voice authorization via phone, because these voice modulators and AI that can imitate a person. All you got to do is listen to us, take this recording from today. You get enough of somebody talking on TV, and it can mimic a person.
I called a credit card company Friday and they said, or Thursday, and they said, do you give permission for us to use your voice to identify your voice in the future? Really? And I just said, okay. I mean, what are you going to do? But we got that, and we got not knowing if it's a real person on TV. I mean, they've got memes now on Twitter that's got some guy talking about something, and he never said it. It wasn't even him. It was just why would we not think that in the future? I mean, you've seen those basketball guys. They got that robot that's playing basketball. I mean, basketball is not something you. I mean, he's not turning over a cup. He's playing basketball. So all he needs is the looks. Yeah. So maybe maybe that's what we'll have in the future is personal robots.
Oh, sure, yeah. I think you'll definitely have robots that help you out around the house, whether it's cleaning or cooking or, I believe that we'll have, have y'all seen these 3D printers? These 3D printers you'll be able to print your food, I believe.
well, and robots will allow, I've always, some people think, I guess, a lot of people feel like robots are going to take jobs away. But I look at it as kind of the other is let the robot hammer the nails in the roof, let the robot be the roofer, put the people doing that to a more efficient use. Kind of, it's that's where I think robots will actually help
just like the cotton gin.
Yeah.
It eliminated cotton pickers. In the future, it'll just be instead of taking the cotton to the cotton gin, the cotton gin will go out and pick the cotton or do whatever. Why wouldn't we think that's going to happen?
The technology over the last few decades has been, just in our lifetime, has been amazing. But you start taking all these robots, you think about how fast civilization can continue to progress when you have the robots doing these mundane tasks and then you can have humans doing other things to assist or control or manage or, think of the ideas like Musk and Bezos are doing that are just way up here, 30,000 foot level.
And think about the young Bezos or Elon Musk that's just now coming up, and he's going to build on their
Sure.
knowledge and what they've had. It's going to be wild. It's going to be
Duane,
wild.
you're learning you're getting your pilot's license. So, I mean, robots, that can't be that far off from them flying it. There is
no.
I mean, there is planes now. I mean, the
Oh, yeah.
military's got the plane that flies itself. I mean, it doesn't have.
And they've got autopilot.
They've got
They just didn't have
autopilot.
a
Yeah,
person
nowadays
sitting there.
they've got a button on even the general aviation planes and
Sure.
the new ones that push them. You know, this is the whole. This will take away from the idea of. I've always known like two pilots for safety reasons. If anything, even a plane that only requires one. But now that even I think some of it's not the Cirrus got the
Cirrus-
parachute, but some of
Cirrus,
it's push the button to
Vision
land.
Jet.
It lands at the nearest airport.
Yeah.
Goes to the end of the runway, and it shuts the engine off.
Yeah, so you've got autopilot, but a few planes like he's talking about, the Cirrus Vision Jet. If in an emergency, you're not allowed to just use it anytime, but
Right.
in an emergency, you're flying with your wife, you have a heart attack, whatever. One button, your wife presses it, finds the nearest airport, it lands her safely, and
I guess we'd rather, now that we've learned more about technology and trust it more, I guess we'd rather have it, right?
sure. Well, it's like cars. I mean, how many people are driving around?
Oh, I think technology, in my opinion, it's at a point right now where it's really benefiting the masses of people. I mean, look what you can sell something online that I know people that they're passionate about, whatever it may be. You know, candles, making candles, and then able to get it out there to where your business to the consumer versus having to get it on a shelf inside
Right.
of a. Well, you know, that's.
Some of the Walgreens now are just showing a picture of what you want.
Yeah.
Because they'll bring it to you so fast that you just pick up the picture, which is crazy to me. I mean, it's like Amazon must have owned them or something, but
I think
but
the roads.
but they literally, because of so much theft, they've got just the picture, and you take the picture up there and they'll bring it to you, which sounds bizarre, but that's the reality.
My opinion is the roads, the interstates would all be safer if the cars were driving themselves.
Absolutely,
I agree.
absolutely. No question. That'll really help.
Because of
You've already got life-saving technology in the medical field with robotic instruments that assist in surgery.
technology is the answer for
And
the car
surgeries.
problems and what makes it more
And-
risky.
and-
People
and-
texting and driving, better off just let the car drive itself.
And would we say that all of that started from the discovery of electricity? Because we wouldn't be able to do any of this without that, right? You'd have to. I mean, these phones are all electricity. Now you take the battery out of this thing, and it's a paperweight. You put the battery in it, and it'll save your life, or call 911, or dial the emergency room, or find out where your kids are, or track somebody. Take the battery out, it's a paperweight. So what's the most important thing? It may just be the battery.
You know, if you go without, in this day and age, I think if most people feel like without the phone, you're out of touch, and without our iPhones. But the last time I lost mine, I was somewhere and I didn't have it for 3 days, and I was in a panic when it initially happened. But about that, halfway through that first day, I remember thinking, this is the most relaxed. This not being without this phone has been
Liberating,
yeah,
sort of?
yeah, totally. I didn't really lose out on as much as I thought I did, or get behind, or I think I really was able to. I don't know. It's just we don't realize how glued we are to them until you don't have it. Once you get over the initial panic, you realize, wow, it's really the best 3 days I've had in a while without that phone.
Duane, do you think that with AI, if they have these robots that can speak just like a person, do you think they'll ever classify them as having rights?
Oh, sure. I think so. I think you're gonna. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but they'll definitely have some sort of rights, and there'll be regulations that go along with it. I think.
Now, is that bizarre? Is that bizarre?
You're gonna
Even
see-
to have the conversation.
You're going to see robots that do therapy for people instead of talking to a person. You know, I can see a lot of people with mental health that want to go talk to someone about their problem, but they don't want to talk to a human that has different feelings and emotions and maybe biased. They want to talk to a robot
That's not biased.
that's not biased.
It's not going to tell anybody.
That's not going to tell anybody.
Confidentiality, yeah.
And that maybe no statistics. Oh,
Right.
20% of the people have this problem too. You're not and here's what they do. Well, that's a good idea.
That is good. But
You know, here's what 63% found success with this.
Sure.
What do you think, George, about as far as you talk about robots performing surgery? I guess it's like a robotics and prostate cancer and robotics and
Well, in the medical area, I think you have a lot of biotechnology and at the molecular level and at the mechanical level. And
so robotics would be the mechanical.
In the
level.
mechanical.
All right, so
that's right, because like, personally in my leg, I have parts that were made and put in my leg when I broke it to replace what they took out.
when you climbed out of the ravine, remember that? I told everybody he climbed out of the ravine. But go ahead.
But anyway, and people have, they get artificial joints, they get heart valves and various things, and they have shunts and different parts. And then they have the robotics that assist a surgeon with precision surgery. And then they have what I think is going to have the most impact is going to be the molecular, because they're already doing this. So it's not something that is going to be, it is something that is being done, but you're going to see much more of it, where they use viruses to deliver drugs to you, or they use other substances like lipids and produce nanoparticles, very small particles of medicine to get them to specific parts to do specific things. They may do something like turn a gene on or turn a gene off so it'll make or not make a protein, or they may give you very precise benefits for your immune system. They may act like antibodies, or trigger the manufacture of antibodies in your body. There's a whole variety of things, but they're doing it right now. They just approved, what I think was last week, the FDA approved, or 2 weeks ago, a drug for hemophilia to help make a repair in the gene that makes our red blood cells and the hemoglobin in it.
Is that the disease that you bleed freely?
No, well, in this one it wasn't a disease that you bleed freely. It was a disease that makes you have clotting.
Yeah, clotting.
From
some people that have that can sell their blood or whatever, right?
I
think.
They may be able to. I don't know about that, but but that was where they had one gene they had to repair, and it was one part of the gene called a single nucleotide polymorphism.
Can you use that in a sentence?
But anyway, but the one that's going to be really that they're already using are viruses, and they did an experiment that was successful in using viruses to deliver drugs into your brain, because it's very hard to get medicine into your brain. You got, it's enclosed.
It's got the blood-brain membrane.
Well, it's got more than that. It has a bone all around it, the skull. You got to get through that, then you got to get through, and tinkering around with it. It's not something we understand very well, but it worked because viruses are so very specific, and we've learned that biology. And it only took us a few hundred years to build up this knowledge. But we've built up this knowledge base, we've developed these tools, and now we're learning how to use the tools. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier when you were asking the question about do these changes, yes, they change us and we change with them. We get a tool and we use it at first, and then we find out other things we use it for. When we first had computers, what we did, we made Pong, and we thought that was the end of that was the top thing. How could you get better than this?
Yeah.
And now we do so many more things, and you will see that trend continue.
Isn't it genotech that they're like altering DNA let's say you have susceptible to cancer, and they're just like removing that from DNA.
I'm not sure what the difference between that and turning off a gene. I've always got that confused.
Well, you need to get the molecular biology you had on Lee. On earlier, you had a wonderful gentleman here. I apologize, can't remember his name.
Richard Jones?
And have him come back and explain about that. And he can first tell you what a gene is.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, yeah.
And, but you're talking about the use of information when you talk about that and about genetics. And they can cause a gene to turn on and off, and they're not necessarily changing the DNA. That's what has the information. But they're changing the switches that turn that gene on and off. They have one for Hodgkin's disease now. I think they're experimenting with where they don't change the defect, but they turn the gene off so it won't continue to excessively produce so much protein. It causes a problem. But but when they do the gene editing, they're going in and they're opening up the DNA, and they're looking at what are called the codons, the base pairs that match up, and they're removing or changing one or two or sections of them. So they manipulate that basic information. So in one, you're changing when you turn the radio on and off, and how long you play it and the volume. And the other one, where they do the gene editing, they're changing the tubes inside the radio. So
do we think the advancements in the future are going to be more in the? I'm wondering if it's going to be more in the medical field, or AI. I can't figure out, or is it going to be a mix of the two?
Well, first of all, it'll be a mix of the two because the AI will help you make a lot of advances in every other area. And if you want to make a change in the medical field, you have to get a lot of regulatory approvals and you have to get a lot of testing. You don't just put these in people and see what happens. They first published, I think it was in 2011, about the CRISPR-Cas9, the gene editing. And you just got your approval in this year for the one for the hemoglobin. That's because it takes a long time to get approvals. With the technology like software and computer, you develop it today, you can market it tomorrow. You don't have that regulation problem. Now, if you come out with new software, my son tells me you don't just stick it in a big computer right away, Dad. You have to go do other testing and see how it interacts with the software and everything you've already got. So I'm totally ignorant about that, and I don't understand it at all.
Well, they work with technology, and to my knowledge, they use a sandbox. So if they have a new software development, they have a sandbox, which is a side computer running the same software programs, and then they try to break it, like George is saying, and if it eventually works out and doesn't break the rest of the software, they can implement it or incorporate it into a new upgrade with the current program. But I think all this really goes together. It's all
goes together.
Part of one progressive movement, and it's really going to be helpful to specifically, I think you're going to see a surgence of exoskeletons.
That's right.
Which are going to be beneficial to individuals with either through aging, paralysis, have an issue getting around, and it'll also be implemented into workers or people to give them kind of like, almost like superhuman strength to do something.
Will it be like a nano suit, or will it be a skeletal thing?
Well, they'll be skeletal, I think, like an exoskeleton. But they've got what you're talking about, like the nano suits. They sell those right now. You can get, they're about $13,000, and you can buy this suit, and it has all these different points on it. So let's say you're playing a race car game, and you've got your VR headset on, and you're turning the corner. It puts pressure on you. It feels like you're turning the corner. Or if you're playing a game and they're shooting people, it'll simulate that you're getting shot. You feel it. And that will not just be for gaming, but in all aspects of this virtual world. In the next decade, you're going to see a lot of people that really, and I think somewhat as a negative, you're going to see some people that really kind of recluse back into their home in a corner on the internet, on a computer with a screen, headset on, and their whole world is virtual, and their relationships are virtual, and some of it can be sad.
Virtual.
Sure. Virtual
I
girlfriend.
think in Chattanooga, there is a entertainment business that has something similar to what Duane was talking about, and you get a virtual experience, and you can go with 2 or 3 friends, or like 4 of you as a group, and you'll see each other in the virtual world, and you have these sensations around you that
Like
enhance it.
go to a concert or something.
I'm not just sure what it is or what they do, but I can imagine some of the things people would like to do. But it would be all sorts of extreme things, maybe. But maybe it's skydiving, I don't know, or base jumping without a parachute, I don't know. But that's no doubt that'll come about.
What effect will this have on real estate?
Well, you know,
Commercial real estate.
Well, in real estate
I mean,
general,
yeah.
it's allowed. Well, you know, it's kind of separated. We'll say brokers and real estate agents. I mean, this is even now where it's before they had access to information, resources that nobody else could. Now, technology has allowed the home buyer, you know, the homeowners to have, or commercial, whether it be, access to information that's never been there before, which I think is beneficial. It doesn't eliminate brokers, third party at all. It just, I think, it allows, instead of just, when there's more information to the masses of
Being
people.
like going on Trulio and seeing what something's worth without having to necessarily ask an
that,
appraiser.
or even now, like with access to even legal type that's not, before it's been unattainable or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, could you have an AI lawyer?
Well,
I mean,
I think you will see that.
I mean, they would know the law. Now, if you go to an AI judge, that gets back to that movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still with Gort. You know, Gort was
How much would the AI lawyer cost? $500 an hour?
I guess it'd be cheap if you already owned it, right?
Yeah.
All you gotta do is plug him in.
Yeah, who knows? All this stuff is, there's a big move into the service model as a monthly payment. Everything's turned into a monthly service cost.
Subscription-based.
Software as a service, basically.
Subscription-based stuff.
Yeah, used to, you bought QuickBooks and you owned QuickBooks. Well, now you got to pay for it every year, over and over.
Gotta
and over.
make sure your credit card's
Right.
up
And
to date.
your new car, you may have it for a year for free or something, but eventually you're gonna have to pay for OnStar. You may have to pay for your maps. You may have to pay for your automatic driving, your Super Cruise, so things are moving to a software
Pay
as a
for your
service.
radio. Pay for your radio now with Sirius Radio.
Yeah.
Things are still getting smaller, D. I mean, in the real estate,
things are getting
still getting
smaller.
I just read the other day where the average commercial space is down to record limits, whatever it is. I think it's 3,100 square feet or something.
just
But
don't-
in 06, the average space was like 5,800 square feet, just across an average. And then, as you know, the residential people now, smaller. But it's continuing to go that way.
I wonder why things are getting smaller like that. I wonder because we say technology, we discover something, we invent a use for it, and then that invents such and changes us. So how is that, you could say that Amazon, discovered getting packages to you conveniently.
How much of it's technology and how much of it is after a big event like the recession that changes?
Yeah.
How much these
And-
things got smaller, as you knew, you were ahead of the game like always. But that changed. That was an abrupt. That was something that was a big event that shifts the way people think. But then you throw technology. I guess it's just a combination of both.
Well, so many ways we're set in our ways and the way businesses operate until we have an event that occurs, a recession,
A forced change,
a
maybe?
forced change like COVID. I mean, before COVID, try going through a bank drive-through and getting a cashier's check. It ain't happening. All of a sudden, COVID happened. You can get a cashier's check all you want through the drive-through.
You
Easy
might not be able to
peasy.
get cash.
You might
not even
Somebody's
be able
not
to
going
get
to let you
cash.
get cash.
Yeah. So, I think some things out of these detrimental times actually produce more efficient processes. But it's also has made a change where people have exited some of the commercial offices and more work from home and those sorts of things.
You know,
Still
they-
think face-to-face interaction will always be.
Oh, I much prefer it.
I mean, that'll never go away.
Is that because we're old school?
Maybe.
George, you remember a time when you had to go see them face to face, and do you remember a time when people didn't like to use the phone even to talk to you? I mean, we text and it's not even rude now.
Right.
Well, I don't remember a time when people didn't want to talk on the phone, but I do think it's just innate in us as in our biology and the way we're made up that we are social and we like to meet together just like we're doing here and talk face to face.
But to Duane's point, and to my point, is this new invention's going to change us, and we don't have to, and we're going to become non-social creatures. You said you feel sorry for them. Maybe that's the way
Well,
we're going to be.
I
we're
think
going
they'll
to be.
still be social. They'll just be virtually social. So they'll still log on. They'll still have relationships. They'll still meet with people. And I think the technology is great. I mean, you can log on. You can have a conversation with somebody in China or California. Y'all can all meet together at the same time. You can get business done. It's a fantastic resource. But I do enjoy like this right here. In person. Now, some people that are younger, maybe they feel like when they have a headset on and they have a virtual environment like this, they feel like it is in person.
Maybe they
it
do.
is.
Maybe it is.
You may have a change, just in your thinking about it, if you have kids that grow up just playing video games and not engaging in social, where that becomes their norm.
That may be. Maybe that's reinvented.
And you may diverge into the people who that's their norm, and then the people who like the traditional, let's all get together in real life, IRL.
Well, growing up, you had a Nintendo. The best you could do is get your buddies to come to your house and you all play the game sitting beside each other.
If you had an extra
that,
nothing to
yeah,
control.
Yeah, but now, the kids all go to their own house, log on to their computer system, and talk to each other on their headset while they're playing the same game.
It's not just kids, it's people our age.
Well,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that may keep them apart. You're right about that, I think.
And maybe it becomes their norm.
Yes.
But one thing about it, it's going to become their norm, because it's not going to. I don't see it reversing. There's no way people are going to stop doing this. So we just got to embrace it and ride with it, I guess. But what will it do to the commercial real estate market? If we think of all these terms, what will it do to? All right, now let's. I guess what I'm saying is, I had this guy that I did some work for in Chattanooga. Real wealthy guy. He owed me $500 or something, and he said, "I don't have a way of paying you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, all I've got is Venmo," and I didn't know what that was. And he said, "Do you have PayPal?" And I didn't have that. And he named something else. I didn't have that. And I don't even know if the guy would know what cash is, because maybe that's foreign to him. Why can't he write me a check? He doesn't have a check. Now, we are becoming more acceptance of that. I take credit cards for rents. I don't, they bring cash, okay, but if it's credit card. So is there going to be a time, because if all these people are sitting at home going to these virtual worlds, who's going to make money? I'm not going to pay you for playing a game. So at some point, somebody's got to do somebody's laundry.
Well, people
Right.
actually make money in the virtual world, in the metaverse.
All right, let's say they make
a
it.
percentage
but
of it.
on what?
They lease their land. They farm their land. They sell what's farmed on their land. They sell the properties they bought
That's so
for
far out of
profit.
my thinking.
It's
It's like
happening
monopoly
right
in the
now.
real
It
world.
really is.
You know, the real estate world, there's certain things you can't, well, I mean, just like anything else you think it won't, but things that you can't, people do that nowadays, well, it's changed too, more convenience. Can you get a cup of coffee through if you want coffee, can you get it through,
Yeah, you're right.
You
Now,
know,
you're
it's
right.
where
There's things like
you
that.
know, you can't, that's where the world
can't
you
get-
mentioned, like commercial real estate, the things that are the things that have stood strong will have always stood, you know, through
In
the,
other words, if you're in the virtual world, you're not going to buy a hamburger
yeah, can the virtual world make
Right.
me eat a hamburger and feel like this is
and fill you up.
can it? I don't know, but like you said earlier, as soon as you think something's impossible,
What about advertising on billboards? Now, that's changed.
you think that's going away?
No, but I think it's going away, but I think the way you do it has changed so dramatically now. You don't see people out there repainting the billboard.
No.
Right.
All digital.
Or wallpapering it, or, you know.
Yeah, it's as easy as uploading a
On your phone?
photo on Facebook to change it out an ad on a billboard these days.
And
Making that thing show you 5 different, I mean, how many, you can have what? So, I mean, it's been on where it is, you know, ads, instead of just one paper, now they can show you 4 different ads.
Yeah.
So there's your exact
yeah.
technologies
They
that
say, we'll
benefit
give you, every 9 flips is yours,
Yeah.
or whatever. What about, now, if we fast forward this, not 50 years, but just fast forward it 5 or 10, I mean, I can remember the big deal was going to the Village Mall, and then I remember the mall, the Cleveland Mall, and then the Bradley Square Mall, and I don't guess I've been into a store for anything other than maybe a Coke or a water in a while. I go to Big Lots sometimes just to make phone calls. You can walk down that aisle and call people, and it's sort of nobody knows me, and it's okay, and you know but other than that, commercial real estate was for people coming in for commercial needs. Now, if they're not needing it to go see somebody because they're doing it through Zoom or something, or they're recording their deed online, or they're getting their building, the city of Cleveland, I went down there the other day and I you was with me, and we was getting a permit, and they didn't even want us in there, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you got that feeling that we were just imposing on their space, but yet they want downtown Cleveland to flourish. And they say, well, we want Cleveland to flourish, downtown Cleveland. How do we flourish it? Well, we need more residents. Well, to me, we get more residents, now you're a neighborhood. So a downtown Cleveland can't be apartments, that's a neighborhood.
The things
You
that
gotta have businesses, and what's gonna go in there?
but you look at the things that are, to me, I feel like in the commercial real estate world, the stuff that's today that's out there still with a need, whether it be
Yeah,
it's
what is
something
that?
that can't be, it's everything from, like I said, you can't e-commerce a cup of coffee or a hamburger, or certain types of gasoline, or even banking, and even drugstores. You would think that could be, well, that's something that human interaction dealing with your prescription. Because to me, pharmacies and banks are pretty similar. That's why they put them right beside each other. That's why there's 2 of each of them.
I never realized that, but you're right.
That's
Never thought
the
about
reason
that.
for that too. But then all the way to your Sherwin-Williams paint. Why are those stores there? Well, it's heavy. It's hard to, what do they call it?
Match
Yeah,
stuff.
hard. That stuff that even certain specific, like I feel like clothing stores in some ways. Like even though I still order it, so it could be. You ever notice clothes don't same style, same brand, same thing. The next year won't fit the same. There's value there being trying it, in especially boutique, or whether it's those are still around. What else do you see? Of course, the service. I mean, things that are you can't get a haircut through the metaverse.
That's right.
Nails done, tan.
exercise,
Exercise gyms. I mean, never, 40 years ago, you wouldn't have seen a gym downtown. They'd thought
Right.
you was crazy.
Now gyms are in,
Now they
Areas.
can afford the space, I guess.
yeah. But they go in, gyms are pretty versatile.
But will the landscape, will the real estate landscape change as fast as these changes? I mean, I guess it has to, right?
You know, the last several, the new thing, yeah, is in real estate, it has been movement to was basically around sustainability, but the mixed use has been design model is what cities are pushing people, to go to. That's why you're seeing a lot of zoning reform, things that are allowing for that. Maximizing the efficiency of the land value per acre. See, land value per acre, a lot of times on certain things are the opposite of what people think it would be. A really big store that's going to do a lot of sales is really not the best land value per acre. I mean, that's your big box type. But affordability, all the above, it's just everything's, but then technology allows things to, I do think real estate's going to see in the next few years where technology is going to have there's going to be some, you've already had your normal e-commerce transition, but things would allow for.
You think that's kind of done all it's going to do?
I mean, but, yeah, I mean, you say that, then I feel like it has. In that, but now technology is going to allow for, I think what I was saying earlier, it's going to benefit the homeowner, the consumer, allow things access to information that was never there before.
I wonder if we're in a cycle. It's like, you mentioned there's certain brick and mortar items that are always going to be necessary. You have to do it in the real world, right? But used to, you mentioned the Village earlier, you had kind of the outside mall feel. And then you move to the inside mall field, Bradley Square, which is empty most of the time, was kind of the next phase. And, I feel like we've exited that phase into this plaza thing. Everybody's doing these shopping plazas. So are we in a phase that goes back around to the village style?
It's going back to the original, that's what I guess I was saying. If you look at what the cities are pushing, where they say now, like what's sustainable is go back to the original design of your neighborhood with your original walkability.
You've got your shopping,
Your 15-minute
Your 15-minute
city.
city is what it's going.
Your residential's right there with your commercial.
The thing that's frowned upon the biggest now is the suburban sprawl, which that came out of when was that, in the 50s, 60s? They say that's what don't do. And go back to your.
I think there's another element to that too. I think you're exactly right in what you're saying, but when you have the model where you have the big Sears store, the big department store, that big anchor, when you lose that anchor, like Cleveland Mall and these other malls do, everything around it dies over time. It withers away. And with these plazas, you're reducing that risk so you can get your financing, and you're not dependent upon one tenant to make you or break you.
So the anchor may not be as important as it used to be?
Your anchors are down, your
anchors
busy
are-
street, your demographic.
The anchors sunk a lot of these properties.
George, you would know they're legally tied to it, and that's a big deal now, trying to hash through all these
And
shopping centers.
they're in control too.
And they're in control. If you got, here was like, let's see, we had like Goodies when they went away. Well, there was all these things, they're your main anchors. So then there's all the restricting the covenants, restriction things that got to be tied for how to decipher through getting rid of that. Then everybody that's tied to that goes down. But then it just causes a whole. That's why that model's, I think, kind of gone away.
To your point, I was up there. Up there by the Bradley Square Mall, that out plaza there where 5-0 or five below and all that. I went there last Sunday for something, and I would have never thought, but that place was really busy. I mean, you couldn't hardly park, and it's on the end, and I wouldn't have given 2 nickels for that working. So maybe that's like everything else. Maybe the big anchors were an anchor or an albatross, whereas Now they don't rely on any one individual. They can be cheaper, and that goes back to our things are getting smaller.
The internet killed the big anchors.
It killed the big anchors.
And that when they did, it changed that model. You had too much floor space and expense.
So maybe we're going back to the neighborhood, to the
That's what it is,
to
the
the neighborhood store. I mean, you know, between here and I don't know, Blue Springs, there were how many neighborhood stores? What was there, George? There was a bunch of them. I remember on Blythe Avenue, there was a guy that had a store there for years. I used to go in there just for the nostalgia. He was there on Blythe Avenue. I don't remember, or Chippewa or something like that. He had a little store. He sold everything from Cokes to linoleum. And so maybe the pendulum's swinging back to that, but I just don't know.
Well, technology determines the life cycle of industries. If you think about, let's go back to Blockbuster and Hollywood Video.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, you saw this cool little thing called Redbox that comes out. And you can get the same thing in a little
Did
box.
away with them overnight.
And yeah, they're gone. And then what happened? Redbox, it weren't around a few years.
Then came Netflix.
Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video. And so now we've reached a point where everything's digital download. You can access it on your iPad, your phone, your TV, whatever, instantly. So Redbox isn't necessary. Blockbuster isn't necessary.
Blockbuster, I feel like they could have evolved and stayed in time. If you look at Blockbusters, they had some of the best real estate anywhere. If you look at where
They were at the best
No matter
location.
where city, town, they had the best. It just, and they had a kind of had experience for the day. I mean, Blockbuster was our time. I was probably, 8, 9, 10 years old. We'd go in there and rent a movie or video game.
Yeah, you'd
have to
shop
bring it
and walk down the aisle.
Did you get popcorn? It was kind
Well,
of
it was a good day,
and
wasn't it?
they had it going, and they just never. I don't believe they have ever. Something they just never evolved with.
Yeah, you'd think they would. I guess they didn't have these kind of discussions.
What was the other one? Hollywood Video.
Hollywood Video, yeah. But somebody gave me a CD the other day with, a music CD. Mm-hmm. I told my wife, I said, we
do you
don't
play it
have a
on?
CD player.
Right.
I don't have a CD player in the car. I don't have a CD player at my house. I couldn't even listen to it.
I like to watch these sitcoms, and I went online and ordered a whole series of one. And I ordered it, and it came, and it was a thumb drive. Just a thumb drive. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know where you put thumb drives anymore. I think you have to buy, I don't even know if I got a TV with a thumb drive.
Changes
I don't
rapidly.
know what's going to happen. It's going so fast, isn't it, George?
Yes, it is.
We may walk into a store at one point and say, can I help you? Yeah, I'm looking for a new robot. Mine is making these noises with his knee, bends his knees, and it's driving me crazy. But this time I want one that talks a little louder because I'm having trouble hearing it.
And you're probably going to be greeted by a robot or hologram to ask them about that.
Instead of a person.
Yeah, sure.
And instead of the volume, you just turn it up, I guess. Wouldn't that be something you could just turn off the volume of who you're living with?
That might be popular.
That might be. But
Give the wife a remote for her husband's hearing aid.
Yeah,
She
just
can
turn it
up and
down. Mm-hmm. I don't know what else is going to happen, but I think that probably that's going to happen as far as technologies, as far as AI and robots and go to the store and it'll either be a robot greeting you or, we go to Walmart now and it's just, they spend millions of dollars to get you in there and you gotta check yourself out and they don't have somebody saying, hello, thanks for coming. That's gotta eventually hurt them, I think. Sure. I'll just order it online. It'll be here quicker than I can get the time to go get it and get back and leave it in my car and forget I got it and find it behind the seat a week later.
Well, the concern I have about a lot of this and the technological advances of AI and computer generation and just the whole advancement is, you've got these computers that can only learn what information that we've given them to start out with. Now, they may be able to create once we've given the basics, but there's been certain things in history that we're trying to just kind of push aside, that it either never happened or happened differently than it really did. And then you've got computers that will take over the human factor of moderation, of maybe it's a chatting online, or a computer will decide whether the information you put online is fact or false. And that, it scares me a little bit to have that much power in a device telling you what's true and what's not. And people are gonna, by far, believe it. I mean, you know, you get, like George was talking about earlier, computers gonna keep taking you down the same road you start on. Well, that's how we end up with the people that really believe in a flat earth. They start out searching it, and then they go down the rabbit hole, and by the time they're done reading it 4 days later, they really think the earth's flat.
And do they have the right to believe that and to voice their opinion, or do we squelch that too?
Well, they have the right to
Because
believe
we
it.
have to have free speech on all levels,
They
right?
can believe it. They don't have to be right.
But can they? But they think they're right.
So who's programming the computer, though? Is it that person programming the computer that's going to tell you online that when you posted the earth is round, that you're wrong? Or is it the person that puts the earth is round going to tell the guy that the earth's flat is wrong? Like,
Well, right now we got censorship on all kinds of the platforms. So I guess they're already doing it. It's just not in the form of a.
they do it
And-
right
and
now.
when-
It's human. Mostly.
And if I Google something and ask something, it's going to send me up the information that's from the websites that pay the most to be up front. I guess I think there's some algorithm of that, but so I guess they're already doing that in a sense. But that was happening way back in the Western days. They used to have the dime novels, and they wrote about Billy the Kid and all that stuff, and they made legends out of people that weren't. So false information has been going on forever, I guess.
What, history is written by the victors? Is that what they say?
They say history is written by the victor, and what's the other saying? That's why these warriors always wanted to win, so they could rewrite the history.
I just don't want to lose the history, because if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it. And whether it's you know, the good or the bad, you know, you need to learn from where we've been so that we can project forward the best of our ability.
That's really going to be complicated. I think that may be the biggest question of all of this, because I think medical will come on its own. I think free enterprise will discover and fix and get permitted and get regulations, and they'll do that. But this other stuff about getting information is going to be really difficult, because who knows what information you're getting. I mean, I don't know what to believe anymore.
There's going to be huge arguments over social justice. There's going to be a growing difference between the haves and the have-nots as you have technology come along, and the ability to, you know, extend your life through whatever AI functions are available.
Yeah.
But
It may be not that you died, it's that, well, we couldn't afford to live.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a bigger gap between the rich and the poor, George, or does that ebb and flow like everything else?
I think there's a bigger gap between the rich and the poor, yes. I think it's been increasing. That's part of the dissatisfaction. I think that's part of the appeal of one of the, I'll just say Trump. That's part of his appeal, is that a good segment of the country feels like they haven't been been paid attention to. It's been to the detriment of themselves and their families.
You think you think the gap has been, have you known another time in history when the gap got real broad between the rich and the poor? Because there is a huge gap right now, huge.
Yes, they called it the Gilded Age, when the country had a lot of trusts in it. And that was part of what got Teddy Roosevelt as a very populist president, and they broke up the monopolies. You had like the Standard Oil monopoly and others, but you had families who had been able to accumulate enough money and buy enough property that they could control a particular key industry.
Such as the telephone, I guess, at the time, right?
Or well, yes.
Railroad.
Oil, coal, railroads, different ones. And it led to things like the Vanderbilts. And you see, drive to Asheville, and you see that was one of the Vanderbilt's homes. And you look at how many homes they had and what percentage of the national wealth that one family had. And the government decided for social reasons, social economic reasons, that we're going to break that up. That is not good. It was, and that's what you have under antitrust law. You have monopolies right now. A lot of people would argue that Apple is a very successful monopoly. And I'm sure Apple would dispute that, and I can't answer that solution. But they will sometimes add and remove different things from their devices. If you get a new Apple product now, you probably can't plug headphones into it. You probably can't do certain other things with it because they want to drive you to use more Apple services. You can't put a DVD in it. They don't want you to use that. They want to drive you to use their technology, and the derivative of that you see is more monthly services where you don't own it anymore. At one time, you bought the software, which it might be perfectly suitable for your business, and you could keep continually using it. Now they want you to rent it, and they control you that way.
So do you think, how will we as a country, have y'all noticed the bigger divide between the rich and the poor? Have you noticed
if you look at the areas that are most productive, this is where I feel like it's on your smaller cities and towns, to where if you look at most states, I think in our state, 90% of the productivity is coming out of 3 areas that don't even make up a third of the population. That's unlike ever before. I think before the recession, it was more of a balanced. Okay, that right there tells me, I don't know, but I feel like smaller cities and towns have created a monopoly amongst themselves. It's clear that the opportunity is more in your bigger metro than ever before. I mean, there's always been bigger, but per the, like I said, when you're producing 90% of the productivity in areas that don't even make up a third of the population, there's a problem.
Say that again.
I think that, it's both states. I think I think when you take Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, just those 3, don't even take Memphis into consideration, those markets themselves are producing more of the GDP per our state than anywhere else, upwards of 90%. They make up a third of the population. That's kind of the like.
So you're saying even in that figure, we're seeing a discrepancy.
Yeah, where the people, I think it kind of goes back to what you're saying, that people have been left out. It's kind of where you get who said the other day, people in smaller markets, some are thinking the people in bigger are at the blame. It's like, and then one of them's calling each other names that don't make sense.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I don't know how to, and maybe this new technologies will help to even that out, because somebody can work from home now and be employed in Chattanooga, but they live in.
Who will own that technology? Who will own it?
That's going to be a big
because
the
people who.
I know what you're. Yeah, I've wondered that too. I mean, I don't have my own internet site or my own search engine, so I've got to go to theirs, and there's how many, and that's almost a monopoly, just like the oil and the railroad and the coal, right? You see what I'm saying?
Well, we speak
shouldn't that be a utility too, where everybody can get online and have their own search engine instead of searching on an engine that's just going to feed me what they want to feed me?
Well, you have access to multiple search engines. That's an option. Everybody says Google is one of the leaders, but there's multiple out there. You could use something else.
What, 200 or 50?
I don't know. There's probably less than 50, I would say. But if someone creates a product that's better, that searches better, that gives you the answers that you're requesting, people will slowly move to that platform, I think. but the difference between the have and the have-nots, you know, in the United States, people generally have access to the internet as a whole. There may be certain areas that are out that don't have it available, but I think the issue when you discuss haves and have-nots and availability of livable circumstances is more of a global perspective than narrowing it down to the United States. I still believe we're the greatest country in the world. I still believe that if you're born here, you have a lot of opportunity and you have access to information and you have access to kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make something of yourself. But there's certain countries where they don't have that. You know, they're living off a few dollars a day. They may, you know, their day they're going to try to find water and food. And that's more of an issue than trying to make sure that in the U.S. is all leveled out.
The world votes every day on the U.S. by the number of people trying to enter our country. Look at any other country and see who are people walking across deserts to get into the country or trying to sneak in every way they can.
Well, I think things are not that even. I think that there's a big divide between the rich and the poor. I think it's getting harder for a person to overcome these differences.
But the difference between the rich and the poor in the U.S. versus the U.S. as the rich and Ethiopia as the poor is a much larger gap.
But it doesn't mean we ignore this gap.
Sure,
right?
I don't think
Because we
ignore
can't do nothing about that one. Maybe.
You know, it's interesting. What's the service called? Elon Musk has got the satellites up now.
Starlink.
Starlink.
Oh, I've got a story about that.
So I flew over one time.
Let me tell you all a story about that. So I got these apartments I built called October the 10th, approximately, for Spectrum. I'm still waiting for them to hook it up. And I've called and called and called. I finally got a hold of a guy in Cookville that was some kind of a liaison for the Spectrum legislation, and oh boy, he's gonna stay on it. Then I got a hold of this guy in Knoxville, and he assured me that he's gonna check it out and blah, blah, blah. I'm still waiting.
Monopoly.
All right, a week ago, 8 days ago, I thought, well, I'll just try this Starlink. I looked it up on the internet. I got the number. I called. I got this guy. He said, what do you need? I said, I need internet connection. He said, how many? And I said, how far does it go? And he said, 2,000 feet. And I said, well, send me one. And he says, it's $712. And he said, I'm going to ship it out to you, and it's $120 a month. And I said, well, when will I get it? And he said, Friday? And I said, next Friday? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, how do I hook it up? He said, I'm going to give you a name and a phone number and a password, and that's your personal guy to get online to set it up. So I waited. That was on a Thursday. On Tuesday, I called and said, is it on the way? Before I got off the phone, I'd gotten an email saying it was going to arrive Thursday at 10 o'clock. It arrived at 9:30. We hooked it up. The whole building's hooked up. Friday afternoon, the same guy called me and said, just wanted to know if I got it hooked up, and if I needed another one. And I thought, well, I don't need another one, but if I wanted one, I sure would get it from him. And I said, I appreciate it. And then I hung up, and then they charged my credit card. They didn't charge me till I got off the phone with them, and I'm still waiting for Spectrum to call me. Now, how do you? And there's no wires to this thing. How are you going to beat that? What are you going to do?
That's competition. That's what capitalism's supposed to do, generate.
Yeah, Spectrum's had too much of a monopoly to get rutted into.
I've got 4 numbers that I was calling every day for 2 weeks straight.
There's nobody worse than, I hate to say it on this pub, but it's than dealing with Spectrum.
You just...
They'll treat you like...
I mean, I thought sorry, I need to get internet. I don't even know I guess I don't even think I don't know what they're thinking, what I'm doing.
Well, once again, it's technological advancement. You know, Spectrum has to come out and they have to run a line to your property, and they have to dig a hole and put it in there and hook it in. And,
Yeah, of course, I already had the conduit and everything,
right. But you know, this other, you're just hooking to a satellite up in the air, so you're almost comparing the telephone we started out with to a cell phone.
That's right. That's a very good.
But now if I was in Spectrum, I would have called me back and I would have gotten something done within November, December. We're working on 3 months. They've had 5 people call me saying they're working on it. So I would, if they had come and hooked it up, I'd have just gone with them. I mean, you know, they were, you know, cheaper by the month. So it wasn't like they were cheaper. It's just they did it. They're not even going to do it. So technology is great, but at the same time, you got to marry service, and Starlink did them both.
Well, for all intents and purposes, though, Starlink is kind of a startup. It's new, so you got to think their systems and operations and management and processes is all lean, and you've got Spectrum, who's been in business for who knows how many decades. It was another names before that, so they've got multi levels of field operators and management, people that's been there for 30 years. And
contract work, most of it.
Yeah, so they just probably don't have as clean of a process to get things done. You got a lot of fat built up in the system, probably.
Well, I don't know, but it sure is. Next time I'll just call Starlink. It's just so much easier. So what else is new, do we think? I heard this person say the other day that there was a company out of Colorado that he worked from home and he drove a truck. He worked from home and he drove the truck.
Really?
Can you imagine that?
I haven't heard that. I know drone pilots is a big thing. I just read the Navy. No, it was the Air Force. The Air Force, they just came out with this. I guess, they try to get, I think it's 1,500 new pilots every year, and it's been a deficit every year. So they just came out with this promotional, and I believe if you sign, as a young person, 12 years to fly for the Air Force, they give you a $600,000 bonus, paid out $50,000 over 12 years. And you may be flying a F-15 or whatever, or you may be flying a drone sitting over here in the corner. So drones are a different thing. Driving a semi or whatever from your house, I haven't heard of that one.
I wonder if they can, Amazon, I wonder if can't you get pizzas from drones now?
Well, they were doing the landing, I hadn't heard much about this recently, but the biggest thing a couple of years ago was pushing towards, I remember you and I talked about where you're going to need for real estate, you're going to need a landing pad too.
Well, that's true.
And I think maybe it was Walgreens, which I actually saw the other day, their ratings dropped, but their new stores, that was one thing that was implemented in their site. You got to have the like a helipad, but for your landing pad for the drone to.
That makes sense because it lands in your driveway and you run over your car.
But then I always thought they're going to have to figure out neighborhoods. How's it going to?
Yeah, how's that going to affect power lines
and just disturbance? For the nuisance, all the things that because the drones have been the big kind of air with air traffic control, like in the airspace.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are so big.
I wonder if Starlink, if they can give me internet from the satellite, why can't they give me power?
Well, wireless power they're working on it. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Isn't that what Tesla came up with originally? I mean, wasn't that?
I think they're one of the ones.
Yes.
I mean, Ecolai, Texas, Tesla?
Oh,
yes.
I mean, he had the Tesla coil.
Mm-hmm. Make the light bulb light up.
Yeah, one day 40 years from now, they may say, yeah, and those idiots had wires running down the road.
Well, you can
cars would hit them.
You can put your cell phone on these in your car or at home, and it
I've got one by my chair. I just sit on it and it charges.
You don't plug it in; it charges. So it's kind of wireless, right?
It takes a while to get used to news. I know it's
it's a matter of where you want the wireless.
Right.
Where is it at?
I still use the wire. That's because what you're saying is my wife's car, fairly new, and it has that option.
Now
And-
these
but I still
electric
use the
cars,
plug-in.
they've got them where you can pull into a garage and then, the electricity's underneath it. It charges the car while you're sitting over it, just like my phone does at night. So I don't know. I wish they would work on the normal, postal service, don't you? Y'all notice the mail seems to, I think it only
been
runs here
rough
like every
lately.
other day.
It's been rough.
This time of year, I guess they're behind because the other night I heard them out there at my house, which, I mean, I know they're probably backed up more than it was 11 o'clock at night, which I mean,
That's crazy, isn't it?
but
Oh, to get
they're
shot.
backed up with.
George, what do you think for the future? You optimistic?
I'm optimistic, yes. I think one change that'll be interesting to look at for the next few weeks is there's an application to create an exchange-traded fund for cryptocurrencies. And the significance of that is that the fund will have shares you can buy and sell on the stock exchange. So that gives you a way to participate, if you think crypto's going up, with something that you can readily change into dollars. It
Boy, that's
indirectly
over my head.
monetizes cryptocurrency. But they've got a couple of applications they're looking at, and they're expecting the SEC to give an announcement within the next 30 days about if they will permit them to start doing that.
That's BlackRock, right?
I think BlackRock may have been one, and Kathy, one of them was the ARK Fund, Kathy Wood's fund.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought, who's it? Well, you think you said, was it Jamie Dimon? I thought he's against all that, isn't he?
There were quite a few people who were against it, and I'm not speaking for or against it, I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's interesting
No, yeah.
that you have seen that come from a research paper that was written to this multi-billion-dollar worldwide crypto market that we have now.
It's my opinion the ETF will definitely be approved. There were multiple companies over the last few years that tried to do it, and they either didn't have the resources or ability to get it through. But at this point, you've got some major players.
Like Dogecoin or?
Well, no, I mean like BlackRock, who they've got the funds, and ARK, they've got the funds behind it, and the people and the lawyers to be able to push through an ETF. I think it's a great thing. It's crypto as a whole is going to become a norm.
Now, when we say crypto, do we mean crypto coins or just electronic money?
All the above.
Well, so who's controlling how many coins there are, or how many?
Well, with Bitcoin, it's controlled by the originating algorithm that it self-limits. It takes more power to make each incremental coin. And so it has a self-limiting.
There's a
function built into
limited
it.
supply to Bitcoin, but there's so many other coins out there. You know, some of these coins that you would purchase just give you the benefit is access. You know, let's say one of the singers comes out with their own coin, but if you purchase that, the value is you get front row seats at the concert.
But to me, that's just a ticket.
Sure, but all
But
tickets will become electronic as well.
But somebody has to back it up for us to be a country. Isn't that the way we keep track of everything? I mean, how else are we going to do it if we don't
Well, if it's-
have money?
Well, with the exchange, you can see how the market is valuing it, because it will be valued in dollars by the value of those shares.
Well, and it'd be very easy at some point where you get on your phone and you want to charge me 500 US, but I pay you on the app in Bitcoin and you receive it US dollars. So there's going to be
All right, say that again.
there's going to be a way, there's going to be in the future where you can pay someone with whatever denomination you choose, but they receive it in whatever denomination they want to receive it in.
To me, that's not currency.
Well, sure,
See,
why
to me-
not? Why do you care what I pay you with? As
Well,
long as you receive it in US dollars, why do you care if I
then that's not the trade. It might as well trade baseball cards.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, you could. What if you charged me $500 and I sold a baseball card?
I'm
but you
saying,
got the US dollar?
until the IRS accepts it as payment, it doesn't matter.
Do you have the economic equivalent right now? You get paid in euros. I mean, euros, you agree, are currency, don't you?
It's backed by someone with a gun.
Well, it's backed by a group of countries, but it floats against, its value goes up and down against the dollar, and the dollar goes up and down against euro, depending on which side of the trade you're on. Then you have an intermediary that makes an exchange. And you have to, when you're agreeing on your price, you figure out what your net will be to you in dollars. You look at the exchange rate. And that's what Duane's talking about. They will have a recognized exchange. I think they were trying to do that with the one that failed, weren't they? It wasn't that.
FTX?
Yes. I mean, they were trying to do that, and it was run by crooks. I shouldn't say that. It was run by people who apparently did not run it well, and it failed.
It made a run for it, though, didn't it?
But it's so far beyond the IRS saying it's okay. They don't have control. The U.S. can't control it. The European Union can't control it. Cryptocurrency as a whole will prevail. And what's going to end up happening, I believe, is that governments will eventually create their own. In my opinion, the Bible speaks of one world currency one day. And I think the only way that can happen is through digital currency. Remember when we were talking about they wanted to have the Amero? Was that like the U.S. and Mexico? And, that's never going to happen. No other countries are going to agree to use the denomination of another country. But if one day someone comes about and says, hey, let's do this new digital thing, and on the back end it makes all the adjustments, but we all use the same thing as one world currency, that fixes the problem for everybody, right?
I don't think so, because the back end adjustment would be so fluid that such a lack, because the only reason we can trade these things is because of the confidence in them. Why would I give you access to my 100 beautiful acres with this view with this thing that nobody's backing it?
Well, it's no different than the complication of trading currently. The current ETFs and the stock market and the bond market and derivatives, it's all extremely complicated, but AI and computers just throw it out like that. It's going to be very simple.
That's that technology we're talking about, them all coming together to create a change. That's another example. You couldn't do it without the computers.
I still think for people to trade, to sell real things, I'm not talking about a concert or whatever. I'm talking about real assets, hard assets. I believe it would be hard to trade that to somebody for a belief in something besides what the United States government or the government that's over it, because aren't we?
Some other people may agree with you, and they say, you need to pay me in dollars. And that's why it goes through the intermediary who converts the crypto into dollars, and that's what you get.
All right, let me go back another way. Is it true that the United States, boy, it's getting deep, but isn't it true that the United States, that when I buy a deed for when I buy property and I get a deed, isn't that a form of a lease in a sense? I mean, I don't own it. The government says that I own this, and in order for the government to protect me owning it, I only need to trade that for things that the government accepts.
But you're going to get what the government accepts as the seller. I've purchased real physical items with digital cryptocurrency. So I got the physical item that I wanted, and if you're the seller and you're selling me the physical item, I can pay with digital currency.
Sure.
And you still, at the end of the day, as the seller, you get whatever, whether you want a euro or a peso or US dollar, you still get it. So you don't really care. You just want to make the sale.
Well, if I'm selling something of real value, I'm going to make sure that it's. I mean, if it's, I just think that I'm only going to sell. I mean, would you ever sell your house for crypto coin?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and why?
How many crypto coin you want for it?
But if you wanted to sell your house, someone could pay in crypto, and
Sure.
you still receive the U.S. dollars. But what backs the? Let's talk about the dollar.
No,
what backs the U.S. dollar?
Let's say
Why
you
is there value?
Let's say you sold me your house for crypto coin. I say, hey, I've got this crypto coin. Now the only thing I can buy with that crypto coin is people that accept crypto coin. I can't. If you give me dollars, now everybody accepts it. So
you
I'm
can immediately
limiting.
exchange it though.
Well, we hope, but I know I can with the dollar. With this crypto, it's just kind of an idea and a theory.
It could be exchanged at the closing.
Well,
When you close, you get the
when I can send it to the IRS to pay my taxes, then I'll start receipt. I'll accept it for payment, unless it's just for a birthday party or a concert ticket, something I'm going to use up in a second, something they can't take back away from me.
There's a lot of benefit with the technology and smart contracts that allow a transaction to take place without an intermediary, which is a big benefit to all this as well. Even sending money from, if you want to send money from here to China, you can send it direct with cryptocurrency versus having to go to a bank, walk in and sign paperwork and pay a fee and wire it and wait a day or two. It's immediate transaction. There's a lot of benefit, and it's going to happen whether people
I'm
like
sure
it or
it's
not.
going to happen, and it'll happen whenever the government that the property is in accepts it as payment.
But what gives something value is that people put their trust in it to use it. There's nothing really backing the U.S. dollar. There's no gold backing
That's all we
the U.S.
got.
dollar.
It's the most thing.
It's a piece of paper.
What was that group that started several years back that you got BNI, you get together and instead of me buying that from you, you did this service and it was worth this much, a bartering system. They're not meeting at Shoney's anymore. So, but you could exchange that. They had these little tickets.
Sure. Yeah. Well, cryptocurrency and the technology.
I'm sure
behind
some
this,
form of
yeah.
that's going to come. I guess credit cards are the same thing. It's just that.
Like physical money is almost going away, and I don't really like that. I'm a fan of being able to use the cash, but I was recently I just got back from Utah, and on the slopes you can't use cash. I tried. I was going to pay for a meal. Sorry.
You can use it at the concession stand at the Atlanta Braves game for the playoffs.
And I thought you had to accept, if you were a U.S. bidder, I thought you had to accept cash, but evidently that's not the case.
I don't think so. You go to the country club, they won't hardly accept cash. It's all charge, which is just another, I guess it's sort of putting it off.
So it's kind of going away. Everything's becoming digital.
That's all.
George, have you done any closings where you accepted digital coins instead of dollars? I mean, do you ever when you go to the courthouse and you record a deed for valuable consideration, 1,700 bitcoins were received?
If it was 1,700 bitcoins, that'd be
Quite a bit of
nice
money.
piece of property. But
Yeah.
no, it's all U.S. dollars. That's. But I have on my wall framed some state of Tennessee currency, and it says that it is convertible into Spanish silver coins, so Spanish silver dollars,
there's-
because the Tennessee currency people didn't trust it. So they wanted to be sure they could exchange it for something. Same problem you're talking about with the Bitcoin. But they found a way around it, and they'll find a way around with this Bitcoin. And the point I brought up about this ETF is I think that's one of the steps towards that what Duane's talking about, the more general acceptance of it. But I don't know. Well, it'd be interesting to see. I don't know what the outcome will be. I was a really good father to my son. He bought some Bitcoin when it first came out, he got it for a dime. He bought like $10 of Bitcoin for a dime each and had a whole bunch and was telling me about it. And he got up to where it was worth like $100 for the whole batch. And I said, you better get your money for that quick while you can. You know, it's not often you get an investment that's now worth 10 times what you put in it. That's a really good return. I'm proud of it. But you need to get out while it's still there. They go, that's going to collapse. Now, we don't calculate, in my presence at least, what that would be worth today if he had not listened to his father. If he had relied upon, because he was trying to explain to me why he thought it would work and why he was willing to put $10 in it, and the logical thing was just to let it ride. But anyway, I hope he forgives me.
I'm sure he does.
I'm sure he does. Say with you, George, you've given him plenty of good wisdom over the
But that
years.
was
George is one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah, I
Likewise.
concur.
Guys, it's been great. Let's do this again next year. All right?
Every year.
Every year. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Duane,
See ya.
great conversation, George, as always.